Mustang, engine revving, modifications, American spirit. These are all sorts of things that come to people's mind when they hear the word Mustang. Born 55 years ago, this car is no doubt an American icon with American heritage. And for the 2020 model year, the base Mustang Sportsback starts at around $26,000, and this one right next to me, the Convertible, starts at around $32,000 because that is a $5,500-ish option. So what does a base $32,000 EcoBoost 4-cylinder pony car has to offer? We'll find out in today's video. If you are familiar with the Mustang back in the days, you can see that a 2020 Mustang, which is the 6th generation, although it's much sleeker, still maintained that distinct Mustang look. I think it looks good. Not remarkable, but good. It is athletic. It's got a lower hood and grills, and the rectangular edges look sharp, and the body shapes and lines are extremely visible, revealing that strength, power, and muscular appearance. The design can definitely sustain the test of time for a while, given that this is a good example of carrying an inspiration that has been passing down for decades. More details in the front. First of all, you've got two air vents on the hood, and they're actually real, with actual holes going into the engine bay, unlike those fake plastics just for decorations. And down here, of course, is the headlights. Needless to say, this is pretty iconic, with the eye staring right at you with that, chrome finished rim that looks pretty sophisticated. And right next to it are 3 individual LED daytime running strips, and that is very important because it is the same deal in the back with the taillights. You see, those taillights also have 3 individual LED strips like the ones in the front, and that is such an iconic and signature look for the Mustang. If you ask who else would have this kind of layout in the back, the answer is pretty much always Mustang. And for the newer models, those taillights also act as sequential turn signals as they light up individually, which is pretty entertaining to look at. As for the rear trunk, the trunk release is all the way down here above the license plate. It's a button that you press and it opens up this top section. As you can see, the trunk, it's pretty okay. It's pretty wide, pretty deep, should be good. However, the problem is the opening is quite short, and here is a 28-inch luggage. If I have to fit it inside, you see, it's kind of stuck, and it happens every single time. So you sort of have to give it an angle and push it in it. You see, you've got more space for maybe a 3-4 backpack, so that's pretty much it. However, it is still perfectly fine for 2 people for the weekend getaway. And since this is a convertible, we have to let the top go down even if it's freezing outside. And the process is not the easiest I've seen. So the first step is to pull the handle right up here and twist it. So that unlocks the top, and the button is right here. You hold it, the windows go down, and the thing does its own magic and folds into the back. The process is pretty quick, and you obviously have a much better view. Now with the top down, I have these to show you. So these are the plastic cover that you can put in like here in order to give it a better look, I guess. But the problem is, once you have the covers installed in place, you can't move the roof back. So they are pretty extra, and they pretty much just stay in the trunk like forever. Ford, why don't you make it just look better without those extra pieces? I don't know. And the other thing I had to show you is how practical the back seats could be. So with the top down, I'm in the front row, and I'm already pretty tight. This is the best it can get for me. And if I climb into the back seat like this, we can pull the handle right here that will push the front seat on. Then we can get in here like this. Okay, so sitting in here, the seats are pretty okay. They're a little tight, but that's still okay. And I push this back. It actually fitting here. My knees, there's absolutely no knee room for me like this, but I can, spread out my legs and do this. I can imagine if it gets too tight with the roof back, but if we have to pull the roof back, so I have my friend, the convertible man, in front of me. Can you please put the roof back? with that. Okay, so the thing comes right above me, and I'm not sure if I have any headroom left, and it's going down. Yeah, so I can still see you, but I really don't have any headroom. If I sit up straight, it will be like this, and my head will be scratching against the roof lining. So yeah, I would say this car it's okay with 4 people, just not very comfortable. Before we step into the car, 2 things. First, we have this welcome trim on the door side made of aluminum, and it has the horse or pony logo on it, as well as a lit up Mustang text. Second is the horse or pony logo being projected on the ground from the side mirrors, and if you look closely, the 2 horses or ponies have their eyes being projected as well, and 2 horses on both sides had their head pointing forward, which is pretty good attention to detail. Now we're in the inside of this car, and the first impression I have as I'm sitting in the driver's seat is this is such an American interior. And I think this is a good thing because, you know, Mustang is such an American icon with American heritage, and I think what makes this interior feels American is the overall industrial vibe to almost everything. For example, you got the buttons here, they're big, bold, and the big, you know, air conditioning vents, and the shift lever feels really solid. The steering wheel, for example, it's just round. It's so rounded and so big, it's almost in your face because it's got such a depth to it, unlike some other, you know, really flat steering wheel. You have the really big horse emblem in the middle, and there's so many buttons on there. If I count them, I have 16 buttons on the steering wheel. Shifting pedals right behind, they're made of plastic. They don't really have the best click to them compared to some European cars, but that's to be expected in this car. Right above the AC unit and the radio unit, you have the center screen, which is touch sensitive, and compared to other modern cars nowadays, it isn't the biggest screen and the touch response isn't the best, but nonetheless, it is usable. I wouldn't call this very modern and well designed because you can see that the icons and the way it's being operated, it's a little old school. However, it does come with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is a very nice add-on. Some other things I love about this interior, and I think is something very important and special to this interior, are the switches right down here. You see you got the engine start-stop button on the left, and then the hazard light, and you have the traction control. And then the 2 important features, one is to control the steering wheel feeling, and the other one is to change the drive mode. And I should also mention what makes the switches special is they're not clickable, so you can't really press them down like buttons. Instead, you have to pull them up, and they do have a pretty solid feel when you pull them up, as if you're in an airplane. The last switch on the right is labeled mode, and of course, this will change the drive mode for this car. So now, we're in normal position, normal everything, and if we flip the switch, we have normal, Sport Plus, Track, Drag Strip, and Snow Wet. So to simply go through them, normal is just normal, nothing special. Sport Plus, it's, you know, sporty, Sport Plus. You may be asking where normal sport mode is. Well, we'll get to that later. And if you switch again, track mode. So track's designed for track use, and it turns off traction control. Next, you have drag strip, and drag strip is labeled with some, you know, traffic lights that you can see on a drag course. So what that does is locks up the front wheel, and you can do burnout and things like that, which is quite fun. Okay, so now you may be asking, where is the sport mode? Like I said, if you go into normal, the next option would be Sport Plus. Well, sport mode in this car, it's not controlled by the switches, it's actually a gear you can get in. So if you put into drive gear, and the next one is S. The S is what sport mode is. And in the sport gear, what you can do is flip the switch, and you can see that normal has gone away. You can only switch between Sport Plus, Track, and the drag strip mode. And the other thing I love about this interior is the gauge cluster. It's got 2 big giant gauges. One is tachometer, of course, and the other one is speedometer. But what's interesting are the text in it. So on the speedometer, it didn't say speed and it didn't say miles per hour. It says ground speed. So yeah, it's trying to tell you that this car is being driven on the ground. It is the speed on the ground, not in the air or in the water. Same vibe goes to the other one on the tachometer. It didn't say RPM. Instead, it says revolutions per minute. Ah, that feels really serious. Revolutions per minute. And a little display in the middle is pretty easy and helpful. And what I like is you can just click the buttons and switch between different details. For example, you see that by default it's in miles per hour, but if you press OK, it instantly switches to kilometers per hour. So if you're traveling, to another country like Canada, as soon as you hit that border, you can click the OK button and it switch the speed from miles per hour to kilometers per hour, which is pretty convenient as well. The seats, I have to mention, are more towards the comfy side than the sporty side. Again, unlike some other sports cars, the seats may be, pretty harsh and even punishing. In this car, the seats are more, little soft, and they may not give it the best support, but they do feel pretty comfy. And they also have the white line stitching, making them look a little nicer. And of course, since this year is the 55th anniversary for the Mustang, you do have, on all the models, a little plate right here saying Mustang 55 years, as well as the horse or pony logo on the left. So that's kind of special, but here comes to what I don't like about this interior are the cheap pieces of plastic. So yeah, like right here, you hear the scratches. It's really cheap feeling. And right here on the door near the window switches are also very cheap plastic. In the middle center console, yeah, all these are just really cheap plastic, and if you hold this place and wiggle, it actually wiggles ever so slightly. Cheap plastics, it's just cheap plastic here and there, that sort of downgrade the overall feel for this car. Under the hood of this pony car, we've got a 2.3-liter EcoBoost turbocharged inline-4 engine at output 310 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. This engine is paired with a 10-speed automatic transmission that can go from 0 to 60 in 5.3 seconds with a top speed of around 155 miles per hour. Those numbers are actually pretty good for this car, considering you're paying $26,000 to $32,000 for such performance. And the interesting thing is, if you look at the engine bay and look at the engine, you can actually see through parts of the engine and see the ground. So that sort of tells you that this space is reserved for the bigger, more powerful V8 engines. But nonetheless, let's take a listen of how it sounds. However, that sound can't really justify anything, so let's take it for a spin. And now we're in normal, driving with comfort setting for the steering wheel, sitting like this with only one hand on the steering wheel, which is not recommended. I would put both hands on it for the video, but regardless, the interior, the first impression you will have is very American. You have the Mustang logo right on the steering wheel, and everything is just big. The wheel is towards the bigger side, thick. Tachometer, speedometer, both big. Seats, everything, legroom is just big, and that's what America is all about, right? Bigger is pretty much better. And in this car, I would say the only thing that's not as big may be a 2.3-liter inline-4, but the power, 310 horsepower, you can't beat that with an inline-4, especially consider you're paying $26,000 to $32,000 for that kind of performance. Okay, let's go into Sport Plus. Downshift to first gear. Give this car a push. You hit the rumble. Okay, so was it fast and quick? I think it's okay. It's 5.3 seconds isn't to the level of being blazing fast, but as for what we're doing in Sport Plus, you do hit a rumble, and the sound, it really sounds sort of like a V8. However, I have to say that this car sound faster than it really is. Let's take a turn here. See, in this form, in this steering, you don't really have a very confident feel. The steering wheel has a bit of dead zone initially. You can pretty much wiggle it around and the car wouldn't do anything. But if you have a straight line like this, I would say it's actually still a pretty good experience, but the shifting is sort of lack that more sporty feel, I would say. And that's the thing about this car I don't really get, which is the 10-speed automatic transmission. You know, in like some other cars, sports cars, even Porsches and BMW, 7-speed, 8-speed is already, you know, plenty. It's already pretty good. In this car, there are 10-speed, and with the 4-cylinder. So with that being said, when you drive this car, it's got a very short gear ratio, and when you are switching between gears and putting up the rev range, it just changed gears before you wanted to do, or downshift a little too late or whatever. So I think the 10 speed may be better or more suitable for the V8 models instead of this EcoBoost 4-cylinders. But it does pick up the pace, I gotta say, and it's relatively a smooth ride, not something that you will get from the more hardcore, more sport cars like. And that's why this car is of a pony car, which is something between the old school muscle cars and the sports cars. Because muscle cars are relatively heavy, obviously heavier, usually with V10 and V8 engines, you know, big horsepower, and the sports cars should be more nimble. This car is sort of in between. I think it's more of the modern take on a classic muscle car. And let's hear what this friend has to say about this car.
The muscle cars were...
Camaros.
No, the Camaros were pony cars. The muscle cars were the GTOs and the big Chrysler Hemis, right? 300 Chrysler 300 SRT4, whatever. That's a muscle car.
And this one right out there, what do you think of that?
That's closer to a sports car than a muscle car.
Ah, so it's...
Because, I mean, compared to a Porsche or an Alfa, it feels heavy, it feels a little clunky. But if you drive the snot out of it, it goes, and it handles, and it gets down the road.
What makes Mustang so American?
Well, because it was our first sort of sports car. Nobody drove Corvettes. The Thunderbird disappeared and became a sedan, basically.
Well, it had a back
And
seat.
well, not originally, but the Corvette was really rare. It was really unusual. When Ford introduced the Mustang, Americans started driving, if not sports cars, sporty cars.
Sporty car.
Cars that had a little flair, cars
First
that
person I knew.
handled a little bit, you know. And really, if you think about it, what do we build today? We still build a Corvette, and nobody drives it, comparatively speaking. But everybody drives these cars. A lot of people drive these cars in Camaros, and that's why they're iconic.
Women drive Mustangs.
For real?
And
The first
Camaros.
person I ever knew to have a Mustang in 1964 was my 6th grade teacher, a woman. And women bought the first Mustangs. They came in fun colors like candy apple green, and they were you could afford them on a teacher's salary, and they were fun cars to drive. So it was much more of a car for the masses than, as Dean pointed out, than the sports car Corvette.
Also, it really comes down to what Mustang means to a lot of people, especially Americans. Because this car, if we had to say there are 2 cars or 3 that's an iconic American car in the segment, I would say the Corvette, the Camaro, the Challenger, and the Mustang. And what makes it so special is that it carries that very, very American heritage and spirit. It's been like 55 years since the first one came out. And obviously this car, this model sustained that time. It's got, you know, the long body, the muscular look, rectangular look, big overhang in the front, and the power, definitely has power. Steering and cornering may not be as thin, but everything combined into a package is what makes this car a Mustang, what makes this car something truly American and truly memorable. So, how did the Pony do? Well, I think for a $26,000 to $32,000 car, it offers plenty of power. 310 horses, that's not bad for the money. But in terms of handling, this car does lack that bit of excitement and preciseness, and even just the more sports car-like handling. This guy right here, for the money, can still let you experience what American muscle or pony car feel like. And if you want more, you can add the high performance package for this year, which is like $5,000, and the handling package for like $2,000 something. But at that point, I think you better opt for the V8 GT model. This is what we drive, signing off.